witch had lots of reasons that she claimed she wanted him dead, not the least of which that supposedly John had swindled Kate out of money.
Well, that would definitely be a reason.
But I don't know how much of that is true or how little. But it's certainly enough to know that a wide swath of people saw and heard what was going on at that time.
Fair enough.
So, Krysta, you know something else about poltergeists? They tend to happen near teenage girls.
Fun.
Well, a lot of people believe that a poltergeist is actually just psychic energy manifested by a teenage girl.
Right. See, yeah, I mean, yeah, our teenage daughters are impressive, but I'm still not sure that I feel like they can cause that much hysteria in the world around them.
Right. And here's the thing. There seems to be two different kinds of poltergeists, though, because there are the ones that seem to center around members of the family, usually teenage girls. It's usually like they say it's like psychic energy. Mm-hmm. But like there are tales of poltergeists where teenage girls aren't present, and those poltergeists seem to be unusually powerful. Like they have the ability to make things appear from out of nowhere, or make things disappear, or literally teleport things from miles and miles away.
But isn't that some of the stories that were told about the Bell Witch as well?
That's what I'm saying. So it seems to be, to me, she fits that definition of a poltergeist.
Right.
So, but Krysta, if you just get if you practice your psychic abilities a bit more and become a bit more awkward, you could create a poltergeist, apparently, according to these people.
How about no? How about no?
Yeah, I don't want...
make friends with you.
How about I've seen her when she needs a nap. We don't want her learning how to summon poltergeists or causing poltergeists. So yeah, no.
Well, I don't want to be stuck with pins. I don't want to be stuck with pins or have plates flung at me or any of the stuff that goes on with poltergeists.
None of that.
So, before we go on, let's take a minute for a word from our sponsors.
Yes, we need to be sponsored.
Yes, we do. Okay. Welcome back.
KO. You too.
Always nice to hear from our sponsors.
Yes, I feel very sponsored.
Sponsored.
So, let's go a little more in depth on some of the people in the story.
Oh, banana. Okay.
That was weird.
That was an odd thing from out of nowhere, but yeah.
Yeah. So Jack.
Old Jack. Yes, she referred to him as Old Jack.
I just think that seemed like a good place to start.
So tell me more about it.
About what?
Yeah. Old Jack.
That was what she called John Bell. And like I said, she claimed that John had... That one of the things she claimed was that John had brought this on himself by cheating Kate Batts. But nobody had
Cheating her from what, though?
Well, supposedly he cheated her out of a land deal.
Oh.
But I can't find any proof of that. And a lot of people say that the haunting began after the death of Kate Batts. But that's not true, because the hauntings began in 1817, and Kate didn't die until 1843. John Bell, the father of the Bell family, died in 1820.
I see.
And really, the last time they kind of heard from the Bell Witch was at his funeral, when she would interrupt the mourners by singing songs and laughing and just generally being a jerk. Because whatever.
Yeah.
Now, Kate was the daughter of John Williams and Farabee Murphy. She has been found with her husband Frederick in county documents as Katie and Katie. Katie spelled with Katy and Caty.
I see.
Her given name was possibly Catherine. John Bell's wife, Lucy, was a sister to Kate's father. So Kate was Lucy's niece. Lucy and her brother John were siblings to Drury Williams, and their parents were John and Mourning Williams. So
I see.
There is a relation. But like I said, at one point she refers to herself as Old Kate Batts Witch, here to torment old Jack Bell to his death. And that's how the specter got called Kate, even though she wasn't. So the idea that she is Kate's ghost doesn't make any real sense, because Kate was still quite alive. Now, a couple of things that we didn't cover, but the last time she was heard around this time, she told that she'd be heard again in 7 years. And sure enough, in 1828, she turns up to another member of the family for a few weeks.
I see.
Then she said she'd be heard again in 107 years. And if she was, whoever heard her did not record it, so we don't know. But hauntings have happened on that farm ever since. And in fact, the website about the Bellwich Cave, which is really part of the Bell Farm, or the Bell Plantation, or whatever you want to call it, but that cave has been there for as long as the property has, if not longer, and it's just as haunted as the house. Now, the house no longer stands. So many people came to see it that they had to tear it down in the late 1800s for safety reasons. But they've preserved some of the bits of the old house, and so people can see them if they visit the property, but they've really stopped having anybody there since COVID.
Well, yeah.
And they haven't restarted tours yet, so...
Yeah, because I know I did a little bit of research, and there's a cave that one of the documented happenings took place in, that they had done tours there as well, and that has been closed.
Right. It's they call it the Bellwich Cave.
Yes.
And yeah, it's where I got most of the information on this. And I had to look up a few specific things. Like, I tried to track down more information on John Bell. But from what I can tell, he was just an ordinary farmer. He wasn't anything really super special about him. So that brings us to the Bell Witch. And like I said, she kind of impressed everybody that she came in contact with.
Specifically, one future president.
Yes. And so here's the deal. Let's go ahead and tell that story, because I have it.
Because it's a valid story. It's also a good story.
So, Andrew Jackson, as a lot of historians know, was a war hero. At the age of 13, he joined fellow colonists to fight against the British during the United States War of Independence. And in 1812, he successfully faced the British at New Orleans for the last major battle of the war, which is kind of funny because the war really was over before the Battle of New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the British had conceded and they hadn't really surrendered, but they had just decided to end the war. It was too costly for them to fight.
Right.
And so they sort of conceded because they hadn't taken over the colonies again.
Right.
And so, but the speed of diplomacy then was the speed of the fastest ship, which wasn't always so fast. So,
especially in the 1800s.
Exactly. So, the powers that be had already arranged for there to be a peace. But by and large, most people did not know it.
Right.
And so troops that were still here of the British didn't know that they were pretty well done fighting and didn't have to do their jobs anymore. And troops that were here defending still saw the British, so they assumed the war was still going on.
Well, yeah. Because as we already brought up, it's not like you could just pick up your phone and call and say, hey, the war's over.
Exactly. You didn't get an email. There wasn't even really a Pony Express at that point.
Right.
So, the Battle of New Orleans, which was immortalized in a song by someone whose name I can't remember.
Right.
But the Battle of New Orleans really was the last battle of the war, but it was the last battle, but it really didn't take part during the war.
Right.
That being said,
after the war was officially over, but not everybody knew it was over.
Right. And the British were routed at New Orleans. Like, they got their behinds handed to them. And Andrew Jackson was a big part of that. And so he was a fearless patriot, and at that time he lived in Tennessee. And so he was curious, and he was like, I'm going to just go see what's going on. I can explain this legend. And so he goes to visit the family. Well, he arrives from Nashville, and their wagon is filled with provisions. They're hoping to have a good time. He's there with, a lot of his troops, and they're going to have a good time. They're going to go witch watching, is what they're calling it, right?
Right.
Now, as the wagon's approaching the Bell Farm, the men are joking about what they would do when the witch made their appearance. And the lead wagon stopped. Well, the driver propped his whip and whooped and shouted at the horses, and the horses pulled with all their might, but that wagon wasn't moving.
Oh.
Wagon. Sorry. That wagon was not moving.
They weren't dragging that wagon. No.
Exactly. It was stuck like it had got welded to the ground. So, General Jackson is like, all right, everybody get out of the wagon, put it on your shoulders. We're going to, put their shoulders to the wheels, and we're going to push this wagon. Well, they went to push the wagon, and even with the horses pulling and the men pushing, it won't move.
Not gonna budge.
So after a few moments, and realizing they were in a fix, General Jackson throws up his hands. He's like, by the eternal boys, it's got to be the witch. It was kind of a joke. And at that moment, the sound of a very sharp voice from the bushes saying, all right, General, let the wagon move on. I will see you again tonight.
Well, there you go.
So after a few moments' thought, Jackson's party gets in the wagon. And at this point, one of the guys in the group starts talking